Saddam Hussein, the Iraqi dictator, was renowned across the world as a tyrant who murdered countless innocent people and waged numerous wars. However, he was also known for his fondness for gorgeous palaces and a lavish lifestyle. The palaces he resided in were so lovely that one couldn't wait to photograph them. All the man-made lakes and waterfalls, lavish gardens, marble apartments, and other luxuries cost tens of millions of dollars. Saddam Hussein's assets included almost 1,000 structures scattered across 32 square kilometers. Saddam Hussein lived a really luxurious life. Watch the video till the end to know all about the lifestyle of Saddam Hussein. Early life. Born on April 28, 1937, Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq from 1979 to 2003. Saddam was born in a village near Tikrit in northern Iraq. Saddam grew up in poverty in this neighborhood, which was one of the worst in the country. His father died before he was born, and he was sent to live with an uncle in Baghdad at a young age. In 1957, when he was 20 years old, he joined the Ba'ath Party. He took part in a failed attempt by Ba'athists to assassinate Iraqi Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasim in 1959. Saddam Hussein was wounded in the attempt and fled to Syria, then Egypt. He studied law at Cairo Law School from 1962 to 1963, and after the Ba'athists assumed control in Iraq in 1963, he completed his studies at Baghdad Law College. Saddam returned to Iraq after Qasim's administration was ousted in the so-called Ramadan Revolution in 1963, but he was detained the following year as a result of Ba'ath Party infighting. He remained active in politics while in prison and was appointed Deputy Secretary of the Regional Command in 1966. He managed to escape prison soon after, and in the years that followed he continued to grow in political prominence. Political career. Saddam took part in a bloodless but successful Ba'athist coup in 1968, which saw Ahmed Hassan al-Bakir become Iraq's president and Saddam appointed as his deputy. Saddam Hussein proved to be an efficient and progressive politician during al-Bakir's presidency, albeit a vicious one. He made significant contributions to modernizing Iraq's infrastructure, economy, and healthcare system, as well as increasing social services, education, and agricultural subsidies to levels unmatched in other Arab countries in the region. Just before the 1973 energy crisis, he nationalized Iraq's oil industry, resulting in significant income for the country. During the same period, Saddam contributed to the development of Iraq's first chemical weapons program, and in order to prevent coups, he established a powerful security apparatus that included both Ba'athist paramilitary groups and the People's Army, and which regularly used torture, rape, and assassination to achieve its objectives. Presidential lifestyle. Saddam began openly controlling the government in 1979, and after Bakir's departure, he became president. He went on to hold posts such as chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council and prime minister, among others. He utilized an elaborate secret police apparatus to repress any internal dissent to his reign, and he created a massive personality cult among the Iraqi people. His ambitions as president were to dethrone Egypt as Arab world leader and establish dominion over the Persian Gulf. In September 1980, Saddam Hussein began an invasion of Iran's oil reserves, but the campaign quickly devolved into a war of attrition. Saddam Hussein had to cut back his ambitious economic development plans due to the high cost of the war and the disruption of Iraq's oil exports. The Iran-Iraq War stretched on indefinitely until 1988, when both countries agreed to a ceasefire that brought the conflict to a close. Despite the fact that Iraq was saddled with a significant foreign debt after the end of the war, Saddam continued to build up his military forces. Luxury living. The magnificent excesses of Saddam Hussein's 24-year reign continue on in his glittering palaces, which are still utilized by the U.S. forces and the Iraqi government, who captured him in 2003. The late dictator erected 8 opulent presidential palaces across Iraq that epitomized absolute power, the pinnacle of totalitarian style, and were reviled as emblems of brutality by many of his opponents. An Arabic inscription outside Saddam's Republican Palace in Baghdad reads, "O children of ancient Mesopotamia, do not believe what you may hear outside the motherland. All you have to do is look at Saddam Hussein, your leader-president, your leader-struggler. Only believe what he says. Everything else is rumor and lies." Large chambers with hotel-style mattresses and imitation French Baroque furnishings lie unoccupied and covered in dust after Saddam Hussein's capture in 2003. A rooftop swimming pool where the palace's guests used to unwind in happier times has also been destroyed by American bombs. Some palaces were looted by Iraqi residents, while others were occupied by the American army. All of them have been given up to the Iraqi authorities at this point. Many of the palaces, which were built as emblems of Saddam's absolute control, were utilized by American soldiers who invaded Iraq and deposed him in 2003. Soldiers took oaths in the Al-Fa Palace, swearing allegiance to a country he despised in the despot's opulent Rotunda Hall. A third Baghdad palace, which is located in the heavily protected zone that contains the new US-backed regime's headquarters, has become the world's largest American embassy. The main structure, known as the People's Palace, dated from the 1930s, but Saddam erected two further wings in 1995, hailing him as Mr. President, Supreme Commander Saddam Hussein, whom God protects. The opulent strongholds were dubbed Palaces of the People by his dictatorship, but few people outside his Ba'ath Party ever made it past its heavily protected walls. The magnificent palaces encompass a total area of 31.5 kilometers, with artificial lakes taking up one-third of the space. According to a United Nations delegation that visited in 1998, they have over 1,000 buildings, including luxury mansions, guest villas, offices, warehouses, and garages. Palaces were also built outside of Baghdad, in Saddam's hometown of Tikrit, near where he was buried, and in Iraq's second and third cities, Basra and Mosul. The final two are in Thar, which overlooks a lake in Salahiddin province northwest of Baghdad, and Jabal Makal, which is near Samarra. Saddam lavishes his palaces with attention and money, importing crate-loads of marble fashioned into lavish halls, salons, gold-embossed doors, and elaborate mosaics, despite the agony of millions of Iraqis. He asked that his signature SH be etched on thousands of bricks, meaning that today's American diplomats in Baghdad are surrounded by thousands of the initials of one of their government's most ardent foes. However, the palaces were not built solely as spectacular monuments. The Republican Palace, which the Americans dubbed Believer's Palace, was built to hide a state-of-the-art bunker designed to withstand a Hiroshima-style bombardment. The palace was built on top of the bunker to camouflage it, according to U.S. Army officers. It is said to be capable of withstanding anything, including an atomic bomb. On the first night of the U.S.-led invasion, two 900-kilogram GBU-28 bunker-busting bombs were dropped on the building, followed by at least 6 additional bunker busters. The smart bombs passed through the dome, but exploded when they came to rest on the phony floors. He lived like a drug lord. Saddam Hussein appears to have lived more like a drug lord than a ruler. Iraqi rulers were obsessed with guns, cash, and women, and they had more money than taste. Saddam Hussein was one of them, and so was his oldest son, Odai Hussein. He had a property in the Republican Palace's corner, a city inside a city with 6-lane motorways and traffic lights, as well as a zoo. Massive amounts of pornography, boxes of sexual enhancers, rooms of good wines and liquors, and Cuban cigars with his name on the wrappers were found in Odai's home. A 2-story mansion across town appeared to house one of Odai's weapons stores, with crates of Italian pistols, Soviet-era Kalashnikovs, and American-made rifles still wrapped in plastic, as well as ancient muskets in display cases, and dozens of gold-plated knives and swords. Luxury living in Baghdad. Saddam's Love Shack was a split-level, one-room townhouse in central Baghdad that Saddam had. It had a mirrored bedroom and lamps in the shape of ladies. More than 6,000 Beretta handguns, 650 Sig Sauer pistols, 248 Colt revolvers, 160 Belgian 7.65mm pistols, 12 cases of Sterling submachines, and 4 cases of anti-tank missiles were found at the time of his capture, still in their unopened packaging. Soldiers discovered luggage containing submachine guns with triggers on the handles and air pistols that fired cyanide pellets. In one of Saddam's palaces, there was even a gold toilet paper dispenser and a gold-handled toilet bowl brush. While he was enjoying all of the luxuries, the economic woes of the Gulf War further divided an already divided Iraqi nation. Various Shiite and Kurdish uprisings took out in Iraq during the 1990s, but the rest of the world, fearful of another war, did little or nothing to support them, and they were eventually destroyed by Saddam's increasingly draconian security forces. Iraq, on the other hand, remained the subject of intensive international attention. When Iraqi forces defied a United Nations-imposed no-fly zone in 1993, the U.S. launched a devastating missile attack on Baghdad. Further violations of the no-fly zones in 1998, as well as Iraq's alleged continuing of its weapons programs, resulted in additional missile strikes on Iraq, which occurred intermittently until February of 2001. Members of the Bush administration suspected Hussein's government of having ties to Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda movement. President George W. Bush, along with Iran and North Korea, identified Iraq as part of his so-called Axis of Evil in his State of the Union speech in January of 2002, claiming that the country was building weapons of mass destruction and supporting terrorism. UN inspections of suspected weapons installations in Iraq began later that year, although little or no proof of such programs was found. Despite this, on March 20, 2003, a U.S.-led coalition invaded Iraq under the pretext that Iraq had a clandestine weapons program and was planning attacks. The government and military were deposed within weeks, and Baghdad fell on April 9, 2003. Saddam Hussein, on the other hand, managed to evade capture. At last, on December 14, 2003, U.S. military forces captured Saddam Hussein in Tikrit, Iraq. Saddam Hussein was tried by the Iraqi High Tribunal, a panel court established to try former Iraqi government officials, in October 2005. In 1982, he and 5 co-defendants were charged with the murder of 148 persons in al-Dujail, a predominantly Shia town. Saddam repeatedly interrupted the 9-month trial with violent outbursts, claiming that the tribunal was a fraud and that U.S. interests were behind it. Death. The tribunal was finally adjourned in July 2006, and the verdicts were handed down in November of 2006. Saddam Hussein was found guilty of crimes against humanity, including premeditated murder, illegal detention, deportation, and torture. He received a death sentence by hanging. Saddam Hussein's half-brother, Iraq's former chief judge, was also given the death penalty. Saddam Hussein was executed just days after an Iraqi court affirmed his sentence in December 2006. We hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon so you don't miss any of the amazing videos we have in store for you.